Welcome back, my Pokemon Masters. Today, we're talking about the upcoming 7-star Charizard TERA raids, the best and fastest ways to beat them. This will likely be part 1 of a 2-part series, going over the best Pokemon to use and why they are the best, with the second part focusing on any corrections to this, following more empirical data being gathered. But enough of the technical stuff. Let's get into the target of these raids, Charizard itself. Normally, it's Fire Flying. However, that does not matter at all. Reason being, these Charizards will always be forced into being Terra-type Dragon, so that'll be the focus of our assault. Dragon, Ice, and Fairy types. But which of these is actually the best? For that, we have to look at the stats. Lower physical defense than special defense, and while it isn't by a particularly large amount, this actually does align with the best attackers for all 3 typings, actually. They are all, the best attackers of these 3 typings are all physically based, and assuming they are anything like the 6-star raids, we are going to need all the power we can if we want to win. Given their title of 7-star raids, it is likely they are not actually going to be harder than the pre-existing 6-star raids. The reason for this is that 6-star raids are almost impossible to do without highly specialized competitive grade counters. Likely, the 7-star naming is exclusively for a reward pool, and that it is so there is no interference with the 6-star raid pool to just make it a separate tier on its own, despite no fundamental differences. Likely, it will also end up like Eevee, where there will be numerous battles of Charizard going on at the same time in a single game, as if there was only 1 raid per day per player that would tie an entire, quite major event to a single battle per day, and then reliant on fighting for lobbies in the raid search system, which would just not work well. However, before we get into the best counters and what makes them specifically the best, please do not forget to leave a like and subscribe for more of these battle beatdown and breakdown strategies. We're going to be coming out with a lot more of these, especially ones for overall Terra raids and the best options to use for them in general. But you guys didn't come for me to ramble on that. You came here to see how best to beat down a Charizard. The best attacks for Fairy, Dragon, and Ice are all physical, as we have went over before. And the examples for this: Huge Power Azumarill, Iron Valiant, that's for Fairy. For Dragon, the list includes practically every pseudo-legendary in the game: Koraidon, Haxorus, Roaring Moon, and while Ice type is not especially great in and of itself due to its weakness to Fire, which Charizard will have Fire-type moves as it's almost its entire learn set, Excalibur is still an Ice type while also being a Dragon type, and we'll get into why specifically it is the best later. Mostly due to it getting stronger by getting hit by Fire-type moves, and the fact that it cannot be burnt. Double exchange, baby. For the Dragon types, all of their plus points are identical. Massive physical attack stat. 180 base power before including the weakness that Charizard will have, to making it 320 power per hit. They have great natural bulk. They are resistant to fire. Almost all of them are resistant to fire, meaning that they won't take all that much damage from Charizard's moves. The only thing they have to worry about is getting burnt, which, again, Excalibur dodges because Thermal Exchange, amazing ability, which only makes it stronger when getting hit by fire. Many of this applies to Azumarill for a similar reason. It is resistant to fire. It is outright immune to Dragon, which there will be Dragon moves that Charizard has access to. It runs Dragon Claw and Dragon Breath normally, as well as a likelihood of Terra Blast, so it can essentially completely hardwall Charizard. And Huge Power actually makes its attack stat effectively higher than the Dragon's. It's back calculated, it's actually on par with Groudon, around 150. Though the issue is that Play Rough is significantly weaker than Outrage, so it lacks that same brute force. However, it can be seen as a sort of safe alternative, especially when fainting out in these raids. You do lose more time. You're going to have to pick and choose what hill you want to die on. Do you want more power for a faster raid but potentially losing out? Or slower raid but potentially safer and not getting fainted out? The only thing it really has to worry about is a potential solar beam. Iron Valiant is, I don't want to say a happy medium, as it has no weakness, but it has less power than Azumarill, and it's still susceptible to burn, and it is neutrally damaged by fire. However, it has no weakness. Though I do have to say, the two best options are Azumarill and especially Baxcalibur. I would say Baxcalibur is the supreme option in this fight, with Azumarill being the second best. We'll be getting into why these two specifically are the best, and we'll first be covering Azumarill, as well as the best ways of kitting both of these out, which actually is applicable to almost every other Pokemon. Azumarill is, well, who doesn't love Azumarill? It's bulky, it's reliable, it resists almost everything that Charizard can throw it or is neutrally damaged. Nothing more complicated than just spamming Play Rough with that huge power. Resistant to fire, immune to dragon, it's pretty safe. Unless, again, Solar Beam can be used against it, it has no fear. Again, the only issue is its damage is not going to be as high as the Dragon's due to Play Rough's significantly lower base power. However, again, the faint outs, they do cause your time to decrease faster. You will lose a large chunk of time by a faint out. So, again, you're going to have to choose safety or speed. As well as there is the issue Play Rough could potentially miss, but that can be solved with a wide lens. Though the issue of burns is still prevalent, Charizard likely will have access to Inferno, a 50% accurate fire-type move which will always burn. However, this will hit every one of your allies due to the way that now TERA raids work. Even assuming 50-50 shot, half your team is going to likely get burnt from this. For your items, you're going to want that oh-so-wonderful Choice Band, which can easily be gotten from the Mesagoza Delibird store. Ideally, for nature, you would want Adamant Nature with 252 attacking EVs. You can choose to either go for HP EVs or Special Defense EVs, whatever your choice is, or potentially Speed, and just spam that Play Rough. Nothing more complicated. But now we get into the much more specialized and, in my opinion, superior Baxcalibur. Reason being, Icicle Crash, Outrage, both are fantastically brutal upfront attacks that are supremely strong. Thermal Exchange will boost Baxcalibur's attack every single time it is hit by a Fire-type move. Considering the vast majority of Charizard's moveset is Fire-type moves, the likelihood that it will be using a Fire-type move is, I would say, 75% of the time it will use a Fire-type move, and your attacks it will always get boosted. You are immune to the burn, so while Azumarill may possess a higher attack stat, you will possess a higher power as time goes on. Azumarill is capable of using Belly Drum, but that will cut your HP and put you in range of getting taken down by like Air Slash. So burns will be increasingly more damaging to that. But with this, you can attack in the same turn you get stronger. Again, immune to burns. You don't need to worry about Heat Wave, Flamethrower, Lava Plume if Charizard gets access to that Flare Blitz, and the dreaded Inferno. Now, yes, there are the downsides in it is not resistant to fire, it is neutrally damaged by it, which the damage can add up. However, again, the Heal Cheer can patch that up, and Charizard will have access to Dragon-type moves, potentially Dragon Breath, Dragon Claw, and very likely Terra Blast, as I have seen many Terra-style raids packing Terra Blast. And since there are two potentially good moves, Icicle Crash or Outrage, and if you are feeling pretty risky, Glade Rush, if you're going to go down anyway, you can't use the same brute force of the Choice Band that Azumarill does have access to. Something like Leftovers or potentially anything that gives healing would ideally be better, or even something like a Muscle Band. Which is why I gotta say, you have to weigh your risks, you gotta weigh your rewards. So again, it really comes down to what do you think is more important? Beating the clock in terms of pure speed, or wanting to try and play it safe. But since the time is pretty short on these, I would lean towards Baxcalibur due to its greater power. Item spreads and actually stat spreads for the other Pokemon are actually identical if you're using a physical attacker. You're going to want to try and get Adamant Nature, 252 attacking EVs. Since you can actually find Adamant Mints in regular TERA style raids, this actually works quite well for it, as you can easily boost up a team. And if you're going for, say, a special attacker, you're going to want Modest 252 for something like Hydreigon or Gardevoir, which actually can work quite well if you're using a Pokemon with Moonblast. I'd recommend exclusively Gardevoir over any of the others, as you are going to want that higher base power, and Moonblast will actually decrease Charizard's special attack stat quite reliably, allowing you to survive those hits somewhat better. While it is less powerful, again, longevity is a bit important, and striking that balance between power and speed, well, power and speed are the same thing, but power, speed, and bulk is quite important. However, the issue of things like Hydreigon and things like Gardevoir are that they lack the same sheer power as these other options, though Gardevoir with Specs could be quite powerful. And if you're unsure if you're going to have any damaging options that will be quite useful, a good idea is to actually get a Pelipper. As strange as this may be, Pelipper's range will always weaken fire-type moves, so it can actually increase the survivability of something like the Excalibur lineup. By reducing the damage fire-type moves are dealing, they will effectively be resistant to fire unless Charizard is capable of resetting the sun, or resetting the rain into being sun, which means it will waste a turn. Though the downside of this is Pelipper will do essentially nothing unless you can use a move like Helping Hand or Tailwind, or potentially Scald. There really isn't all that much that Pelipper is going to be able to do. But that's all there is for today, depending on the amount of information we get from, well, the actual TERA raids themselves, if it turns out they have more HP than the 6s, if it is nothing more than just a branding thing and the drops are identical. I will be making a follow-up video clarifying all of that. But yeah, that's all for today. If this needs revising, we will of course be doing that. But likely, there isn't going to be any revisions majorly to this, as in terms of typings will always be important. They will always be the dominating factor. Thank you guys for tuning in. Hope you enjoyed. Don't forget to leave a like and subscribe for more of these. We have many more on the way, including one about the best options for TERA raids in general. And, well, that's all. Let's rock and roll.